Hello, hello
Hey.
everyone.
Hello.
Can
Hey
you
everyone.
hear us okay? We got the tech working. We've made it. How is
Yeah.
everyone? I hope that we're live to the audience. So if the audience can help us out here a little bit and give us a thumbs up in the chat or let us know where you're calling in from, that would be amazing. Um, but to kick things off, my name is Henny or Henrietta as on screen. I'm head of content at Affiliate Summit here, and I'm with three industry experts talking about how you can scale your high impact influencer and ambassador program. So to kick things off, I'll do a short round of introductions with everyone here. But in the comments, if you could just let us know why you joined today, what are you hoping to get out of it, and that way we can best answer your questions that you're hoping to find out a bit more about. So Ed, I'll pass it over to you first to introduce yourself.
That's great. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Just
Yeah,
checking. Okay,
we
great.
can.
So thank you, Henrietta. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. My name is Ed Ceballos. I'm the VP of Partner Ecosystem at Everflow.
Amazing. And Hafiz?
Hi everyone. You can hear me too?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, so I'm the CEO of Inflection, and we make technology in the personalization space for partnership marketing.
Amazing. And then finally we have Rob.
Hi there. My name is Rob Israq, president for Topalti, and great to be here.
Nice. And I think, well, getting into the questions, I know we have a lot to cover today and a lot of valuable insights from everyone here. But I think to really start things off for this conversation, it's important to understand the definitions between like what is an influencer, what's a creator, are they an affiliate, do they all count? And I know there's like hot debates right now online that, you know, some people believe that creators and influencers are the same thing, and some people believe that they're not. So I'd love to get your takes on that first. I'll throw it over to Rob on your take, or if anyone wants to jump in if they feel very passionate about it.
I think they're all related, but I do actually agree with the umbrella term influencer. I think ultimately what you want an affiliate, a creator, a brand ambassador, or the other terminologies, performance marketer, if you will, publisher, whatever, to do is influence the audience to, whether it's engagement, whether it's consuming content, whether it's sharing, purchasing. You want to influence their behavior, and that means you need to have the types of partners and influencers that can do that, that have authority, that have credibility, that persuade people. And so I think influencer is a fair word. There's, of course, the subsets of influencers beneath that. There's different activities and behaviors you have to do to effectively run these programs, but ultimately the output that you want is influencers. So I'm a fan of the term. I think it's actually a healthy change.
Okay, love that take. Anyone else wanna add on to that?
Well, yeah, I'd say it's helpful to have like an overall umbrella term, and I think what it does create the space for many different kinds of initiatives to fit into someone's budget or job description or role or things like that. I think where it is a challenge though is if people treat them all the same with the same kind of strategy, or I think more broadly from like a management perspective, they all get measured the same way. I think that's where the challenges start happening, because there's many nuances for each type of partner or influencer, or however you want to define it. So I think there's like some larger category breakdowns, like around like an ambassador would be someone that you're choosing to represent you in a highly visible, or your brand rather, in a highly visible way, being a trusted face, being in multiple channels, like in ads or on your website or things like that. Whereas you have influencers, someone that I would say is more like they have an audience that has an affinity towards them. And again, that can be a wide variety of people, like podcasters, emailers, or someone that's got like a Substack, social media influencers, even content publishers. Like, you could say like CNET or Wirecutter, those kind of people are influencers in that sense, because they have an audience that trusts them to talk about certain things in certain ways. And then you have other kinds that are just like, creators, and they have a skill set on generating content, where it's not about the reach, it's not about the affinity that their audience has for them. You can have people that are in both camps or multiple camps at the same time, but the creator is more about how they communicate new concepts, I'd say. And so you can have a influencer that's got an audience on social media that is a good creator and even is an affiliate, let's say, because you pay them on a performance model. So it's not like you don't necessarily fit into one category as an individual. You can be in multiple categories at the same time, and it's more about how each of those different categories are measured, I think.
Yeah, and I think that point around like content publishers can also be influencers and affiliates, and it is kind of like a catch-all term, I suppose, and it has a wide range, and people can fit into that. Ed, are you in the same agreement of that?
Absolutely. We've seen this transition in accelerated the last 10, 15 years, where we move from the one size fits all model, like a flat fee post from a big name influencer, has largely been replaced by a relationship model that reflects depth, performance, long-term collaboration, community impact. And because there are so many variables now that can define how this partner relationship, this influencer can help you. Now you have this very wide spectrum, right? So I think it's great that we keep using interchangeably influencer for this type of relationships. What is most important is that we recognize that what's gonna make work for you is a mix of different factors.
Yeah, and also hearing from the publishers that come to our event, and they sometimes say, oh, like influencers who are on social media, they get a lot of the credit sometimes, and they can charge like crazy flat fees, and then say a content publisher can be influencing just at the same amount, but getting a less of a percentage of an affiliate fee. So I guess, do you understand where the publishers are coming from, and what's your take on that? Like, do you think that they should have similar fees, or should people be working with them in different ways, I guess?
I'll jump in on that one. So, I think it's going to be about what role they play in the ecosystem. Because if someone is kind of opening the box to someone's awareness on a certain product, and they're doing the heavy lift to get them aware of it, interested in it, I think that deserves probably a larger amount of compensation, however it is, as a commission, as a flat fee, whatever. The mechanics are separate from that, but it's just from the volume and size of it. It depends on like how much of the heavy lifting is being done by which kind of partner. So you can have, a social influencer that's really generating unique content to educate an audience and really shift people's perspectives. And then someone comes in with like a review article at the end of the day and doesn't promote it much, and they just sit on SEO rankings for that brand search term. I would say, it's fair for the social influencer to get more there. If this content publisher is writing a piece that is really again changing people's perspectives, and they're promoting it in a way that gets a reach that's beyond just what the brand has already built up from their brand search, then I think they deserve a larger share of the credit too.
Yeah, I will add another factor, which is some of the best stories about brands using influencers are based on direct relationships. And that means that you can really craft a different type of relationship. So now I think that we need to have clarity in terms of there are many ways to engage these people, these influencers. A lot of people are quickly tapping into the affiliate style influencer partnership, right? Because it sounds familiar to the world they know. It's easy to get distribution via traditional networks, but maybe that's not exactly the best model for the brand, right? Ultimately, like which we need to understand which one adapts to the particular brand goals, right? If you think it's not the same promoting a health and wellness brand over an over 50 community of buyers than promoting gaming accessories within the teenage gaming community that is watching, playing, and broadcasting on Twitch. So again, is there are many type of relationships. There are many ways to get to these influencers, and there are many ways to get them to really have an impact. But again, there are many ways they can have an impact. It's not necessarily always conversions. Sometimes you might work with an influencer for co-creating a product or have a product collaboration, right? You might be doing some form of whitelisting and paid amplification partnership when you're using their content and that you're displaying ads on their own channel. So there are many ways to skin a cat.
Yeah, and oh, sorry, Rob, I know you were about to jump in there.
And I was going to say, I do think I agree with that. I do think in this economy, people are still going to demand accountability and measurement, but I think it pushes us much more to a attribution model that we're going to have to create as an industry, and each company will have, frankly, their own. And if they're B2B versus B2C are going to be different, or some of the different spaces like Ed's referring to, they're going to have their own different patterns and a buyer journey and levels of influence at each stage. So I think people are going to have to build attribution models and think of it not just as first click or last click, but all the different touch points, and try and get the math together, or at least make educated guesses at what influence makes sense based on the different types of partners, and provide that type of attribution. At least then you have it tied to some logic and ideally measurement that can give credit to and associate ROI appropriately and justify the investments necessary.
Are you seeing any attribution or attribution models that are working well for brands at the moment?
Huh. I would say I would love to give you like the answer that I love, which is related to the capabilities that a platform like Everflow can add. But I think that let's take one step back, right? In order to succeed with creator partnerships, you need to align that relationship to the business goal, right? And so I would say the first thing before you even start thinking about attribution is thinking, what is your primary objective? Yeah, is like I was speaking with this brand the other day, and I'm putting this question: is what outcome do we need from this campaign or relationship? And maybe what you're trying to get is brand awareness. Maybe you're just trying to get plain conversion or sales, right? Or sometimes you need content generation because you're trying to expand your brand story and or your footprint within a community to bring that brand traction. Maybe it's straight community. You really want to do community building, and you're just trying to use those relationships and their access as a way to kickstart that. Maybe it's a product launch or a test of a new product. So if you get clarity on this, how you want to partner and how to leverage the unique access to a community, the unique voice to talk to them with credibility, uh, now you know how you're going to use that. The second step is know your audience, right? And know the audience of the influencer, right? So putting a question is, who are we trying to influence and who influences them? So once you get these basic things in place, now you know what type of influencer relationship. And I think that, and I know, and I think we all know based on the experience, that aligning the best payout model and aligning what you need to track and how to track it will become evident, but they will be serving that primary purpose in which you need to have a lot of clarity why you're trying to do. Does it make sense?
Yeah. I just want to build on what Ed was saying, because I totally agree with you that it's important, like who you work with first before how you deal with attribution. And I think like it's not who you want to work with figuring out, but also who you need to work with. And so we believe in the concept of like solving for the gaps and having the right partners that deal with those gaps. And I'll illustrate that with a couple examples. It's about finding the weak points in your buyer's journey. So an example would be like Nike. The Nike today wouldn't be who it is today if in the 80s they had signed like 100 UGC creators to do unboxings instead of signing Michael Jordan, or even like 10,000 UGC creators, because their gap was that they weren't a cool brand compared to competitors, and that was the gap. And so they needed an ambassador like Jordan to improve their desirability and fix that as the gap in their buying journey. Another brand that we work with had a problem of solution awareness, so they successfully scaled not by signing a Michael Jordan level person. In fact, they actually had organically people using their product of like celebrities and people that were famous. So that wasn't what was the issue there. Their issue was solution awareness, and so they scaled by working with like a lot of influencer podcasters that were doing long form educational pieces, and so paying that money to like a big name celebrity would have actually been a waste of ROI compared to what they could have done with it. And so we like to look at things like post-purchase surveys are a great tool for that, and asking questions like before buying, like what was your biggest hesitation, and then use different kinds of partners to fill that gap. Maybe it's a trust issue, so you get like doctors and institutional partners, or it's an awareness issue. So there's another good question actually be like, what was the deciding factor that convinced you to purchase? And then like figuring out what people are missing and what they're saying in those post-purchase surveys is really how we find the right kind of partners first, that's point, and then figure out how to do the attribution and payout comp models and all that kind of stuff. And now it's so easy with AI to when you do these post-purchase surveys, don't do like multiple choice questions. That was 3 years ago, that would have been a pain to analyze like long form answers manually by hand. With AI now, like it's so easy to just dump all that raw data into like ChatGPT or Claude, and it'll give you the summarized information like in seconds.
And sorry, but I was just going to say, with that data, you can really find what's working for you, or even discover some new partners that you've never even thought of before.
Yeah. And now one of the interesting things that you see in influencer, and this is where a lot of people starting with influencers get like a tough learning, and it goes to the point of what you were asking about tracking. Working with the right partners, you can pretty much run any scale program like a black box, right? You get some traffic, you get conversions, and you don't know exactly what's going in between. And a lot of brands are able to bring 3, 4, 5, 8, 10% of their sales with affiliates. They have a good brand, good payout, that works. But all the thing breaks with affiliate because with influencer, because it's a different type of relationship, and what you need to measure is different, especially when the influencer is many times doing great work at the top of the funnel. And if you have a model where you just want to measure how many sales you're getting, you might be frustrated. And then, yes, there is a discussion about tracking, and it's relevant. And for that piece, I think the answer is you can't just measure base conversions. You need to be able to measure different events along that buying journey, which are akin to customer intentions, right? You need to be able how these people coming from that influence are behaving in the funnel, measure all these touch points, and then this is going to make sense to you when you look at the performance, understanding the impact along that journey, not only on the conversion or the initial traffic, which is what you could traditionally look at if you're thinking about influencer with the mantra of, influencer is a new affiliate, which might be an oversimplification. There are because simply post and pray is over, right? We all expect measurable results, and you might be having an influencer working, helping you with awareness, right? And using Reels, TikTok, stories to bring relevant content, and your goal is stop the scroll and bring some more brand discovery. Maybe you're using them for consideration, and that's where influencers bring in-depth demos, tutorials, comparisons, because now you want them to help build trust and answer objections. And that's why the testimonials on Amazon from content creators are sometimes so relevant, because you see them using the product or you see them on YouTube, and now you know that this particular tool is amazing. Or you might be using for conversions, or you might be using them for post-purchase, right? To reinforce loyalty, reduce churn, right? So what you need to measure definitely is the ability to measure across the entire funnel, across the entire cycle. So the base conversion model that work at a point with affiliates, it's not going to work here.
I think the other change, it ties to AI a little bit, but in general, with the move more toward the influencer type pattern, as well as looking at the whole buyer journey, it's a little bit more of a quality orientation versus a quantity orientation. In the past, one of my, I was a deep SEO, paid keyword inbound marketer, several jobs ago, and so that's akin to many of the tactics and techniques that I use in affiliate marketing, and that's still important, but ultimately it's a less of a volume game, more of a quality game, and as well as an experience game tied to it. Delivering a great buyer experience that influences people throughout the journey, whether it's the upfront part of the impression or later on in consideration and the such. And so it's not purely a volume game anymore. It's a little bit better to orient. And I do think that's where the influencer tag versus an affiliate tag also makes it a difference, because affiliate was a little bit more of a marketing technique, so to speak. And this is about, creating an experience for the buyer at the other end that influences their likelihood to purchase.
One other tactical thing I'd like to suggest people also do is to use links instead of codes, because like what Ed was saying, if you just had a code, then you're only going to see that last touch point, but you're not going to see any of the events that happen higher up in the funnel, like the adding to cart, email leads, things like that. And then the metric that I like also use generally is to focus on how many assists a certain partner had and needed to close a sale versus other channels that contributed in that buying journey. Because like in an affiliate tracking platform, you could have two partners that had the same number of sales overall. But if you look at like their buying journey, one partner could need like, let's call it like 1.5 touch points to get a sale, and another partner could need like 3.5 touch points to get a sale. And so those other two touch points on average, they need investment. They need, whether it's within the brand to like write an article or whatever, or paid investment behind ads or whatever the case may be. And so that second partner is less valuable. So if they were both paid the same commission rate, that second partner would be less valuable or less profitable. And so measuring that's important. And that's why I always like recommending in the partnership space to pair it with like a multi-touch attribution platform, like a Triple Whale or Rockerbox or something like that. So that way you're also you're able to have visibility on that buyer's journey. And that can really kind of open up which kind of partners are driving that top of funnel, like Ed was saying, versus the closers, and then how to compensate them smartly based on that data.
And speaking of I guess like taking into account those higher funnel influencers, how can you incentivize them to keep doing what they're doing, pushing people down the funnel? Are you seeing any like new compensation models come from that as well?
I always like to have, like when it comes to that kind of stuff, just craft creative deals. Like, everyone's got a rack rate and everyone does favors. And so it's all about building the relationship, and we have like Ed, Rob, and I are like all in tech companies. And so, I think they'll agree with me that technology is there to save you time and to be able to leverage yourself. And, whether it's using the stuff any of us do or AI and ChatGPT, stuff like that, the name of the game is to invest in tech, use that to create time savings, invest that time savings into building relationships, use the relationship equity to craft creative deals and drive growth. And then that creates a positive flywheel that you can just keep reinvesting. So, it's not about like one specific, I'm happy to go into like specific deal structures and models and hybrid concepts and things like that. But I think overall, the larger thing would be to just craft creative deals, and that involves building a strong relationship with the partners you work with, whatever kind of partner they are.
Yeah, I cite completely what Hafiz was saying, and I will add on top, like the smarter models align incentive with outcomes, and it might be like a very basic and obvious principle, but sometimes we lose sight of that as we get excited about the relationship. So you cannot expect conversion metric from someone paid a flat fee for a beauty tutorial, or you cannot expect a deep brand storytelling from a nano influencer that you gave a free hoodie and a hashtag, right? You always get better results when the creator motivation, the audience expectations, where they have credibility and reach, and your goals converge. And when that happens, now you are on the right way where you can bring those incentives that will align with the outcome. So best way to do is you treat creators or influencers like strategic partners, not super affiliates or channels. And that means that you will be directly co-creating with them. It's like, okay, how you gonna use your voice to make this particular brand resonate within your audience? And that means that you're gonna be sharing briefs, no scripts. How many times we see brands like, I'm gonna give you the script. You probably need to work and say, it might work with some nano affiliate some scenarios, but for an ambassador type of relationship, maybe you need to share just the brief, not the script, and let them work it out based on their voice, on their own style, their own expertise. And you have to involve them early in the planning process, not saying, hey, I just posted a new offer, start running it. And ultimately, that alignment implies that you need to give them visibility into the goals, not just deliverables, right? And that's where you craft these different relationships.
Yeah, it's almost like, as you build the relationship with the partners and you have to deliver a great experience on the other end, it means then you have to kind of fit the KPI to the, really the right incentive to get the output. And that might mean that you have a variant of different KPIs depending on partners and types of partners. And then you apply technology once you've figured out that recipe by the different segments and partners. But if you try and scale it first and have one fits all incentive structures, you actually might you might incent people the wrong way, or get lower quality outputs, or lose the best partners that you really want to keep. And so you have to reverse it and start focusing on the strategy, the buyer, the experience, and then match it to the incentive.
Yeah, and there is, I will add one more thing. This is something I learned with Tipalti. It was this thing like, you align with the influencer, everyone is on the same page, and sometimes, well, we forget to recognize that if you're working with this influencer who is making these, I don't know, makeup tutorials in YouTube, and he has 1 million followers, and then you see like, oh yeah, that's right, you earn, I don't know, $250, and you're thinking, I'm going to be paying you every 30 days, right? And for some of these creators who are, I don't know, 15, 20, 25 years old, like they can't be working with you and expect to be paid every 30, 45 days. They might be looking at their account and thinking, hey, I accrue all this amount of money, I want to cash it out because I need to go and get more of my product, right? And so it's crazy, but part of this alignment is making sure they get paid in the way they want to get paid. And I know many organizations are not prepared to do more than like traditional big payouts to networks and super affiliates, and they need to equip themselves with the ability to do micropayments, which is what many of these influencers demand, because it's crazy for them to wait 4 weeks, 6 weeks until they get paid. Like, I see I earned this money, I want to get it tomorrow, right? So it's amazing how in this crafting the relationship, many times we forget the payment piece and the frequency.
And that probably does come from back to what you said on the relationship piece and building the trust with your partners. And like, I know relationships are so important in this industry. Um, but on that, I have a question on, say for example, you're working with an influencer on like a flat fee rate. This is just based on what I've heard um, from some brands, but you're working with an influencer on a flat fee rate. How do you kind of move into that relationship of affiliate? Um, and how do you, I guess, convince the influencer and make it work for both parties?
Yeah, one thing I see that often works for that, like if they're fixated on their flat fees because that's what they've been used to, but you don't want to play roulette and have some potential losses there. Essentially, what we like doing is crafting deals that are, to just tell them, hey, you want this? Sure, no problem, but I need a minimum guarantee on my end of what this is going to do for sales. Like, just be transparent about your numbers. Say, hey, if you want $5,000, whatever, that I need, let's call it 100 sales. And then if what ends up happening is you've effectively turned it into an affiliate performance deal. And then if they don't hit those minimum thresholds and they just have to do a couple make goods of other posts or campaigns, whatever it is, in order to achieve your minimum results, and then they get paid their minimum and you get your minimum results. And yeah, effectively that on the back end, it's turned into a prepaid affiliate deal in that sense.
Yeah, and I would add one more thing. Remember, the word that we're using and we're referring to as is incentives. And incentives is not necessarily only payouts. And when you can align the incentives to what they're trying to do, you discover there are many more avenues for them to be happy about this relationship. For example, let's say you are a gamer, that you have this Twitch channel, and you have, I don't know, you haven't been able to crack 250,000 followers. Now you make this deal with Activision, and they're going to invite you to this launch of this new game in LA. And now you can go and post that content, that you were in this VIP suite, that you get this exclusive swag, that you get first access to this, and you can actually post content about this product everyone wants and no one can put their hands on, but they can't. That thing in themselves is going to help them elevate their own image as an influencer in their own field across their own community, will raise their credibility, and they will be very, very thankful without being so much concerned on how much are you going to pay me or how much extra for this and that. Like there is this big group of influencers that they really create this symbiotic relationship with the brand when they elevate the brand, but they elevate themselves, right? So think about this in terms of incentives, and then you discover many other avenues. If you just oversimplify the relationship to transactional exchange, I think that makes sense if you're working with micro influencers, and I would argue there is an amazing opportunity working with micro influencers, which is influencers like affiliates model, just based on conversion. That works. There's nothing wrong with it. The thing is, many times brands are thinking about the glamour of the red carpet of someone wearing your brand and then paying them like affiliates. And that's where the two worlds collide. Like a brand partnership, a brand ambassador, a micro influencer, the incentives and what mobilizes them is different. And I think that's the first clarity. Then it's easier to align on the payout if everything comes down to money.
Yeah,
Go for it, Rob.
I 100% agree. All these influencers are trying to build out their own brand to work with you, but also to work with others, and also for their own ego and long-term business. And so a lot of the best platforms, like Twitch, for example, they've got a program for aspiring influencers, and beyond, of course, paying them on time and their currency of preference and their method of preference and giving them different choices of payment threshold. They also do things like when a aspiring influencer generates the right results from the platform perspective, they give them additional promotion to get more followers. They give them more hours and days of streaming time. They promote their brand even more, and they help those companies and reward them for that activity to help them grow even further. And a lot of other companies like Roblox, Video Stars, they do the same type of program. You have to help them build their brand. And then, of course, yes, pay them the right amount and pay them quickly with the right method, wherever they are, and the right currency they want and the such. But it's not only about the commissions. And actually, probably the best quality influencers are the ones that are less, they care even more about those other brand aspects for their company.
Yeah, and there are so many stories out there. Like I guess at least a big percentage of the people listening this um, recognize the name Messi, the soccer player. Messi, Nike lost Messi to Adidas, and that happens because Messi once asked, "Can you send me some additional gear to use when I'm off the pitch, just like hanging out on weekends?" And Nike didn't respond, and that thing infuriated him. It's like, how can you give me a pair of shoes, right? And we have this partnership. So sometimes the little things. We see a lot of influencers working out of the US when you go to what we usually refer to as emerging markets. Sometimes the opportunity to keep the money parked on US dollar on a particular wallet is more important than the payout itself, because it generates for them a revenue source that is isolated from the currency fluctuations of the country where they live. So just being able to park the money under a wallet and keep it safe in dollars is something they love, and that in itself becomes an incentive. So again, the source of value creation, right? This old phrase that price is the exchange rate of value. So are the payouts and the commissions. There are many ways to create that, and that's why building relationship with influencers, not micro influencers, but in general influencers and creators, is something you need to craft. You need to talk to them. You need to align, understand their expectations. So it's not a numbers game. It's not about having 1,000 of those fellas. Maybe you start with 2, 3, or 5, and you're gonna get great results. But that's developing partnerships, and it's not clicking on a network that finds them for you, and now you have people making sales.
Yeah, one other thing I'd add, to what you were saying earlier about bring them to like a VIP suite and show them exclusive content earlier than everyone. Ultimately, a lot of these influencers, their game is content. Content is king for them, and so even how you craft things to just go away from promotion to content, there's small nuances you can make in what would otherwise be a promotion. Like, hey, promote this product, and you're going to give your audience 20% off. But what if you did that 4 days earlier than everyone else? So they got an exclusive right to give their audience promotion that no one else on the planet has for that period of time. All of a sudden, that goes from being a promotion and sales oriented to actually being content in some way. And so by shifting that perspective, how you can think about how what you're getting them to do is content, not a promotion, and all sorts of like opportunities will open up, like what the example Ed shared at the suite, or even just something very simple like getting them a few days earlier than everybody else to share something. Now all of a sudden it's content.
I got an example from another webinar I was actually on. It was a brand who was working with an influencer on a special product. I think it was like under eye masks, and for the launch, they said, "Oh, like, what do you really want to do?" And she's like, "I'd love a dinner with my friends." So they hosted a dinner with her friends who were also all influencers, and then they all posted about the product as well, and they all had like their own unique code, and it just really worked. And it's that like alignment on what your partner wants and working with them in that way. That really paid off for them. There's a poll in the chat here, and it's what's your biggest challenge with influencer or creator partnerships, and the highest one was aligning incentives with results. Can we help these cohort of people with that? I guess what's the best way to align incentives with results? Don't all jump.
I'm not sure if that was like
Yeah,
before we answered the latest segment. I think a lot of that was already dealt with. But I think another way to kind of lift the incentives is if you can create a bigger margin for yourself somehow, so that way that you have essentially more margin to pay out to the partners. What we see is like a easy way to do that, where it used to be hard, now it's easy with AI, is personalization. So, instead of running the same generic funnels and expecting, strong results from everybody, and I'm not talking like slapping their name and photo and testimonial on a lander. I'm talking like where you actually cater the funnel to be hitting the right messaging points of their audience and that audience's interest. With that, you can really dramatically change the unit economics and performance. And all of a sudden now you have a lot more margin to play with to create better outcomes for both yourselves and how you reinvest that money, but also the influencer as well too. And so, I'm talking things like changing the headlines and subheadlines. We've done A/B tests where we can see between like 20 and 90% increases in conversion rate just from changing the headline and subheadline, or how you talk about the products on the page and the features and the benefits and tailoring that to their audience versus a one size fits all page, or the email sequence that comes from it, or the retargeting ads they get put into. So really doing that personalization for their audience and creating a few buckets of it, depending on the major kind of partners you work with, I think is one way to really do that. And then, like I was saying, like that used to be a lot of heavy lifting. Now all of a sudden with AI, that got like 100x easier, because you can actually craft the content a lot more easily now, and it's now the juice is worth the squeeze now.
I would add that many times, we mentioned this before, right? There are many ways an influencer can help you, and there are many reasons why they might want to partner with you. So I would make sure that you have this absolute clarity of what you're trying to get, because sometimes, and there are cases when I start talking to the influencer, and in the middle of the process, they say, "Hey, if you can mention this, so we can get more people to try this new offer, which is a free 4 weeks trial, or get more people to upgrade to these paid whatever." And it's like, oh, that's a different message. It's like you're trying the influencer to be a catch-all, do a lot of things, and it brings complexity or brings lack of clarity, and then the influencer end up posting this plain vanilla content. So just have a very strong clarity of what is the one thing you're trying to drive with them now, and focus on making clear that that's what you expect from them. And then the next thing is, if you've ever been doing business development, or you're trying to develop products that have a good product market fit, then you know how to do it. You sit and listen. What do you care about? What do you need? How can I help you? Just sometimes asking this question. Hey, I'm Nike. How can I help you? And I'm Activision, right? Big game publisher. How can I help you? And you might be surprised by the answers you get. As I mentioned before, like, you might be getting the answer, I've seen people that you guys give this piece of acrylic that say YouTube is a plate, like a recognition. I would love to get one of that. Oh, that's great. Or I would love to be part of the guys who are beta testers, early access, or be invited to this event in New York. So just ask the damn question, and sometimes you will discover, like, if the guys bring these results, and if I pay, it could be some amount of money, but maybe I fly the guy's first class is going to be $1,000 ticket within the US, and plus some hotels, might even be even cheaper compared to going to a traditional pay by transaction model. So listen to them and see how what you can give them fits their long-term interests. As we were saying before, uh, the asset these people have is the access to a community, a group of people, and their primary responsibility, quote unquote, it keeps them engaged and interested in coming back to their channel. And so, if you can give them reasons for good content, you are helping their business growth. And if you can give money or experiences or any form of social proof for themselves, for their own brand, then is an additional plus. So it's a pure business development effort, and you need to see it, you need to develop the partnership. And again, it's not finding them and click and send an automated email. Even when that might work in some scenarios, nothing against micro influencer campaigns, but the problems of aligning brands incentives, that is not for micro influencers. That's about aligning a CPA in exchange of something. For ambassadors, that's where it gets complicated. It's a pure business development effort. Build build the business case with them.
It's a bit ironic as AI takes hold, and as digital has really come to play, and people have gone to digital as their first interaction method. In many ways, the techniques that we need to deploy are actually more custom and more relationship oriented, and it's all about trust, because you can't trust anything, and it's all about kind of making people feel special, because they don't want to be treated like a number. No one does, whether they're a partner or a buyer. And of course, technology can actually enable that if you do it right properly, if it's talked about. But it starts with kind of a little bit more going back to some old school techniques, and actually talking and listening to people, and working together on an output that works for your business and for their business, short term and long term, and then figuring out how to deploy that effectively. But it goes back to some old techniques, and it actually might require talking to humans and building relationships too.
Oh, absolutely. And it goes back to one of the principles. I love what you're saying. Uh, One of the basic principles of partnerships is you need to build trust, as you mentioned. And the fastest way to trust is transparency, right? And so if you can prove on that relationship from the get-go and from the very basic questions, even if it's not the thing that's going to matter the most on the long run, one of the first questions typically you will hear is, how much you're going to pay, how are you going to pay me, right? Or how I'm going to know that I'm being paid for the actual people that I send to you. So if you can have the right capabilities to provide transparency and say, like, for example, you're going to have your own self-service portal, you're able to see there the traffic you're sending, the touch points you're going through, the conversions they're getting. When it comes to payout, you will see in real time the money you're accruing. If you give all that transparency, they see like, okay, you're exposing all the data, you're giving me all this additional information, and I can trust you because the data is there, right? In God we trust, everyone else brings evidence. It's great. So yeah, and that's why paying easy, it becomes a really big thing. But proper attribution, proper metrics, proper dashboards, it gives them a lot of power. And when you take that off the way, then it gets easier. Um, I think one of the best models, if anyone wants to learn like how to build that trust, is when you look at people scouting athletes and big media personalities for brands like Nike, Adidas, and others. I think they're amazing stories how they go, start building the relationship, invite the people to a dinner, how this relationship gets built. And as you say, it's very old school, right? And it sets the blueprint for you to then replicate in the future with more people. But the first ones, you will have to handcraft them and learn what makes them tick.
Yeah, and also it's important of like as building trust is don't do dumb things to break it either afterwards. We've seen so many times where brands will like change the payouts and they try to extract more margin and things like that, and that only like destroys like sometimes years worth of goodwill and effort.
That can be hard also when you are scaling your program and you have more and more influencers come on.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
But yeah, I know some people have started like Slack groups for their influencer programs, and then that's like a community where not only can the like marketers talk to the influencers, but also influencers can talk to themselves. Quite a nice way. But I mean, I'm sure there's platforms out there that also can help too. Just I know we're nearly at time, so opening up the floor to if anyone has questions, you can pop them in the chat. We'll see them on our side. But I also wanted to finish up because this is about scaling influencer and ambassador programs, and can see in the poll that 17% have actually haven't started their creator programs just yet. So what would you say are the big rocks to focus on for, well, those people who are starting, but also the people who are scaling? Hafiz, do you want to take that first?
Sure, yeah, I'd say like internally, like we have a framework called the scale formula, SCALE, and that's what we kind of use for like how to build, and then by its very nature, the name scale it. So S stands for solve for the gap. So that's where I was talking earlier with like that Nike, Michael Jordan example, like making sure you're really like honing in on what are your gaps for your brand in the funnel, and not just like, oh, they got a big name influencer, we're going to get a big name influencer. C is customization of the funnel. So like the personalization examples I was saying, we don't try to put everyone into one funnel and put in the effort now, especially in the age of AI, to be able to create these customized funnels. A is like kind of more table stakes and basic like audience alignment and engagement. L is leverage in the negotiations. That's kind of the stuff we talked about, how to, like align the incentives and how to deal with that. So we covered that today. And then E is exclusivity, and how do you create deals that like basically what I was saying earlier about turning the promotion into content and giving them things that are unique experiences, like the examples Ed and Rob were sharing there. So following those 5 things is generally our approach to driving that and building a program. And so don't forget about those things, and especially the S and the C. We see a lot of people forget about that. So again, going into your post-purchase surveys, doing the research, reading customer reviews, like that'll be a gold mine for understanding why people are buying your product and what audiences they hit. Doing and using and then leveraging AI to go parse through that mass amount of information.
I love that. You have to drop that in the chat. I'm sure people will be dying to take note of that if they haven't already. Rob, what are your thoughts?
I totally agree with everything there. From start with the buyer and your needs and how you address their needs and the buyer's needs from the buyer journey. I think the other part they have to add in there, and it was alluded to there around incentives, but just you also want to then match that to which type of influencers influence and how you curate a network of creators or influencers that differentiate your business, but also you need to differentiate yourself with those creators in order to attract and retain them. And so you have to give them the right experience, not just the commission payment, but the commission payment experience, as well as how you promote brand and build their brand and give them essentially the trust and relationship that they require, the visibility that they require. It could be visibility into payment status. It could be visibility into what their results were. It could be alignment with the KPIs and the visibility into those KPIs. But you have to think about that, because long term, your network will be one of the things that differentiates your business if you get your strategy right. And that means you have to attract and retain the top quality folks in your network.
Love it. And then finally, Ed.
I would say I agree with everything, and I think that they answer 99% of this. The only thing I would add is kind of a big takeaway on this piece of scaling. And like, scaling an influencer program is not about adding more creators, right? It might sound pretty obvious, but something's like, if I get these 5 creators bringing this, and then I need to grow 10 times bigger, then I need 10 more creators, like 10 times more creators like this. And it's probably not it's not the case, I can tell you. So it's more about building repeatable systems for 3 key things that are going to hit you right in the face when you're trying to scale an influencer program. And it has to do with relationship management. Is incredible time consuming. And think about anything from contracts, metrics, payouts, content, right? Everything, right? The entire relationship management, it cannot be built on a one-to-one, send a message, Slack channel, WhatsApp, or Telegram chat. It can be good for the first 3 or 5, but you're never going to scale. So you need that repeatable system for that piece, the relationship management, the content activation, and the performance tracking, right? And if you don't have these 3 pieces in place, your program start hitting the wall very quickly. And let's say that you don't bring the good result as fast as expected. Maybe you can manage that expectation with top leadership easily. But what you cannot manage is letting that new relationship down, because there is a lot of trust. So if you're not ready to scale them, you don't respond on time, they ask questions and there is not a single easy source where they can go and look at the answers and get clarity on the process, on the policies, on the rules. All these things affect trust. So now you're putting a lot of effort, but your hit rate lowers because you lack that. At the beginning of this year, I was talking with this marketing leader on this super well-known brand based in Texas, health and wellness brand, and he was mentioning that the product seat request, he gets 250 per week. So pretty much the entire influencer team is fending off those product seat requests. They don't have a platform to run it at that time. They didn't have a standard scalable way. So you get all these people, great relationships, and they're trying to manage all these requests and then try to track if they are delivering their part in exchange of that product seed. And like, it became, operation becomes in itself the biggest bottlenecks as it happens. So it's great to build the model, it's great to test it, but to scale, you need systems.
And I think the one thing that'll, we see at every conference I've been to, at ASC next week, people asking, how do I get more affiliates? How do I get more influencers? But they're pouring them into a leaky bucket where they're just churning out, 95% of them. And so, the best way to grow customers is to not lose the existing ones you have. Same thing for your partners. And so really figure out the systems, like I was saying, really make them happy, make them stay, and make them not, one and done kind of promotions where they promote you once and they'll never do anything again. Part of that goes to making sure the incentives are there, the relationships there, and the experience is there.
I think also with that, it pays off not only with your relationship with the influencer, but then the relationship that you have with their audience, and we would hope your customer. And they, as a consumer, you can really see when that relationship is nurtured from a brand to a creator. Like from my favorite creators, I know what brands they would work with and wouldn't, and I think that's really important to know as well.
One thing, actually, yeah. Well, one thing I also realize that influencers follow other influencers. So if you break it for one, you're actually really shooting yourself in the foot for many, many more of them.
And they have group chats with only influencers in them.
Yeah.
So that could be a threat.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
It's all network effects, and network effect cuts through all this digital and AI noise. So word of mouth.
Yeah. On AI, what is your? I've seen actually a friend of mine has gone from being an influencer marketer to working for an AI influencer tech company. But yeah, just curious your take on that tech emerging. Do you see it having legs, and where do you see it fitting in within the ecosystem?
Yeah, I'll say we'll go back to creating that messaging resonance, doing that easily. So understanding what the themes, the tones, the angles, the hooks that would really engage a certain partner's audience and their interests, and then using that for relevant content creation quickly, that's unique to their audience, things that wouldn't have been possible even a year ago. And then discovery, vetting, finding new partners, being able to look at their content quickly and deeply that would otherwise take hours potentially, finding out how authentic the relationship they have with their brand, with their audience. That's where I see the role for AI, first and foremost in creating that messaging resonance, and then secondly for just mass amounts of discovery, vetting, data analysis.
Amazing. Well, before I wrap up, any final thoughts or questions in the chat? You have 5 seconds to put it in. But Rob,
the only thing I'll add is just one thing we didn't talk. We alluded to it a little bit, but on the global front, a lot of creators, influencers are not in the U.S. And some will actually want for their local currency or local economy to receive U.S. dollar. Many actually want to receive their local currency, and many will not want to receive the same payment methods or ways of payment that you will in the U.S. But that will be important to your business scale if that's in line with your strategy. And so as you go cross border in terms of your partner network, you have to think a little differently about tailoring that. The worst thing you could do, particularly in today's environment, is force a payee overseas to deal with a U.S. focused experience, given the environment we live in today. And so, you do have to deliver in the same way we talk about personalization. You have to deliver a local experience to payees and influencers who are in different markets than the U.S.
That is such a great point, and I think it can be when scaling global and starting that, it can be a tricky road to navigate. Also with legal, I presume that accounts for that too. I know there's back and forths with influencer teams and legal teams a lot, but yeah, definitely something to think about when scaling. I think we're just at time. So before I wrap up, I want to say a huge thank you for everyone listening. I was thinking there we need to get this webinar into a handbook or a guidebook or something, because I'm sure it will go a long way and definitely a lot of takeaways for everyone in the audience. Want to mention that Everflow are doing some giveaways. So there's a giveaway for a Powerhouse VIP wristband. And then also Topology's gift card, and an affiliate summit VIP pass upgrade. I think Darian put all the information in the chat. Thank you for doing that, Darian. And Everflow will be onto the prize winners shortly. And before we head off, for Ed, Hafiz, and Rob, where can people find you? And where can people learn more about you? Rob, you're next to me, so I'll pass it to you first.
Okay. You can always reach out to me directly. I'm on LinkedIn. I think I'm the only Israq on the entire network. So feel free to do that. Of course, you can go to topology.com and look us up that way too, but whatever's more convenient for you.
Hafiz?
Yeah, likewise for me, I'm on LinkedIn and inflection.ai, inflektion.ai. And I put in the chat there also the link to our scale formula guidebook there.
Amazing. And then we finally got Ed.
On LinkedIn as well. It's very easy to find me there. You can find me next week on Affiliate Summit East, and you can also find me at everflow.io.
Amazing. And you can find me at Affiliate Summit East next week as well. I'll be there, flying out tomorrow. So getting the final few bits ready for that. But thank you so much for your time again. And yeah, hope to see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.